Dearly beloved, we have gathered here today to get through this thing called Mix CD. My name is Mike, part of the SPDM crew, and I love making Mix CDs. Each week, we give our guests a theme and an 80-minute time limit for which songs they're going to pick for their Mix CD. This week, I'm going to be talking about groups that had members that broke off and had a successful solo career. And what I'm going to do as well is that this is going to be a two-part one where I do the groups and then the following and next week I will do the solo artist songs. I had this conversation with one of my daughters about NSYNC. And I think the reason why this all came about is because we were watching the Trolls movies once, and we were talking about Branch, who's voiced by Justin Timberlake. And in the third Trolls movie, they were talking about him being in a band and, all of that stuff. And that came up, and we got to talking about it. And I let her know a little bit about, he used to be in this band called NSYNC, and then he broke off. He started doing his own thing, and was pretty successful in both fronts. You get a lot of people who break off from the group and don't really have a successful career after that, but there's been a fair amount of people who did break off and who have had a successful career. So, for this first part, I'm going through the groups. The first one, I do have NSYNC, and I picked Tearing Up My Heart because that is my favorite NSYNC song. It's probably the first song that I really listened to by NSYNC that I really enjoyed. So I picked that one because Justin Timberlake broke off, did his own thing, had a pretty successful solo career, and I'll pick a Justin Timberlake song for next time. Next one, I've got Fifth Harmony, and then I picked Work From Home. Fifth Harmony, Camila Cabello was the one that broke off and had a pretty successful solo career before eventually assimilating back into Fifth Harmony. I got Genesis. Genesis is one of my all-time favorite bands. You could pick Peter Gabriel, you could pick Phil Collins. Either way, both of them had pretty successful careers beyond that, but I picked Invisible Touch by Genesis. I picked One Direction. Most of those guys have had pretty successful careers, but the first one to break off from One Direction was Zayn, followed by just everybody else going about doing their own thing. But I picked One Direction, What Makes You Beautiful. Destiny's Child. Destiny's Child went through a lot of iterations, and a lot of the other ones, Kelly Rowland, Michelle, they've had successful solo careers, but Beyonce obviously became one of the world's greatest pop stars, and I picked Say My Name. Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne has broken off, had a pretty successful solo career, pretty successful entertainment career, but I picked Paranoid by Black Sabbath. Fleetwood Mac, both Stevie Nicks and Fleetwood Mac, Stevie Nicks, she had a pretty successful solo career among some of the other members of the band, but I picked Don't Stop by Fleetwood Mac. Simon and Garfunkel, Paul Simon, he rocks. He does a lot of amazing things, and I picked Cecilia by Simon and Garfunkel. B2K, we have Omarion breaking off from them, had a couple modest hits, but I picked Aha by B2K. Black Eyed Peas, Fergie, and I guess will.i.am to some extent or another, but Fergie for sure had a pretty successful solo career. Fergie also, I guess, was in a solo group as well, so that's fun. I picked Where Is the Love from Black Eyed Peas. I picked The Police because Sting, had a pretty successful solo career as well. But I picked Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic. The Fugees, I have Killing Me Softly with his song, between Wyclef, Jean, Praz, and Lauryn Hill, which maybe I'll pick all three of them. Who knows? Jackson 5, Michael Jackson. Obviously, I picked ABC for that. No doubt, Gwen Stefani. Say what you will, a little bit of a sellout career, kind of swaying more to the pop side as opposed to, No Doubt, which was a little bit more on the, alternative, not as mainstream. But I picked Don't Speak. Next, I've got Hootie and the Blowfish with Darius Rucker, who, he was one of the ones that first went off to, go solo, and then he made a career in country music afterwards, or at least one of the first ones that I had heard of. Now everybody's doing it, but I picked Hootie and the Blowfish, Hold My Hand. I've got the Go-Go's, We Got the Beats, and then Belinda Carlisle, Pick Your Poison with that one. I've got Take That, Back for Good, another boy band, and I will be picking a Robbie Williams song. Wham! Wake Me Up Before You Go Go. We've got plenty of George Michael songs to pick from. The Commodores, Brick House. That will be Lionel Richie. I got Straight Outta Compton from NWA, and then we'll pick a Dr. Dre song from there. And perhaps, the obvious pick, but I wanted it to be last. I've got the Beatles with In My Life, and then we could pick a myriad of different Paul McCartney, John Lennon, George Harrison songs. So we'll probably put together a couple playlists for that to go from there. I know I missed a bunch. I get it. But what are some of your favorite groups who have had members who have broken off and been successful? Let me know in the comments below, and we'll have part two to you next week.
Well, my friends, the time has come to end this episode of Mix CD. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe to anything and everything SPDM Crew wherever you get your podcast. Join us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, X, Threads, YouTube, and Blue Sky at SPDM Crew. Check out our website soon to be out at spdmcrew.com. You could follow our playlist on Spotify and Apple Music at Mike Hilty. Shout out to HiFlyer Creative Studios for making our awesome logo. Greatly appreciate their support. And if you have any marketing, logo, or brand standard needs, contact them at HiFlyerCreative.com. If you've got a podcast idea or you're interested in being part of the SPDM crew as a guest or collaborating, email us at spdmcrew@gmail.com. Until next time, no matter what happens now, you shouldn't be afraid because I know today has been the most perfect day I've ever seen.